I gotta watch my language too.
No, you're
I
fine.
have a mouth like a sailor sometimes, so
That's all right. You can say
I
whatever you
know. I
want.
just I go out of my way. Like I don't even. It's like I don't use the F word around my mother. I don't drop N bombs like in podcasts, not because I can't or that I don't have the right to, but because it makes the dialogue a little more amicable, and it allows people, that might be offended. And so I guess that's kind of the crux of it, right? Like there's not a universal to this whole idea of language control and censorship. Um, I think it's almost the difference between the guilt and shame side of the cohesion of society versus authoritarian rules and laws that come from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you can have social do something in a society, it's a little bit better for a society than like hard fast laws. But it's almost like we've got to the break point of that now as well, because if you have a strong enough narrative, then this sort of like witch hunt mentality is going to push out any kind of rational thinking or truth. So it's done the media's done the heavy lifting in that sense to
People
get
end up,
us to this point.
yeah, I think people end up being more afraid than anything to talk about things, and in that sense people
Yeah.
aren't able to actually come to a middle ground. People end up just staying exactly where they are and get further apart from each other because of the inability to have a dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like and it's anything down. Remember Ken Bone, the guy in the red shirt for one of the presidential debates?
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of rounder and he had certain weird kind of a look to him that everyone kind of grafted onto. So he was exalted, and in the same breath, they're like, "Oh, he's into some weird porn or something," and then they shamed him for that. Like it was like to step into the spotlight, into the public space in any way, is comes with it a severe risk of not just like losing your livelihood or whatever, but also just being like utterly shamed and ridiculed for whatever like your past has, and it's just like I don't think that there's anybody that doesn't have one thing that they don't want brought up, and so yeah, it's sort of that rat on the face 1984 where they're like because it leverages your deepest fears that you're not even conscious of without actually having to implement them.
Mm-hmm.
Every time somebody's like snuffed out like that, or what's it called, shamed publicly, it's like it I think it makes you access your own fears like that without actually having to consciously realize the implications of what you're doing. You just kind of stay in line because it's like, okay, that's what's going to happen to you.
Well,
I don't know.
I definitely think that there's a point to that in even before something, even before you get, even before people come for you, you're already thinking, okay, well, what have I done in the past that's going to be the thing that brings me down?
Yeah.
There's all, because everyone has something. I mean, if you look back anywhere
Yeah.
in history, you're never going to find, maybe outside of Buddha, Gandhi, you're not going to find a lot of people that aren't archetypal Christ figures that don't have a few corpses under their bed.
No, it's like if Ebenezer is Scrooge, was helping out Tiny Tim now, they'd be looking at his old tweets about, free markets and the shouldn't, are there no poorhouses? And it's like, well, but he's had a revelation and he wants to help his community now. It's like, no, fuck that guy. Like he used to be a miser,
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah, I don't know. That's one sort of prong of the attack. The other is financial.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about just before we started recording. It's like, yeah, if you don't have an escape, like it's like, oh, we won't throw you in jail. We'll just make you have to give up your pursuit of like reason and being in the public space to influence like the discourse, and you're going to get to work at like Target or something, and
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm not saying like it's a menial job or whatever, but like you will be reduced to that, and you won't have like, it would be fine for everyone to just have like these sort of like laborious service positions if we all had a public space to be able to utilize, because we could create our own art and and dialogues then. And we wouldn't really need to spend all this money distracting ourselves from our own lives, right? With consumer products and shit. So it's kind of funny, but it's like, yeah, it's like you essentially aren't allowed to speak because you won't have the time to do it. You won't have and there won't be much incentive because, like, I mean, even like with my music, it's like, I don't know, I had 35 listens this week, right? Like that's not a career. Now I'm doing it for myself for the most part, and like maybe to alter the course of a dialogue, but like I couldn't have, like, I didn't even want to be popular until I got certain things locked down and said, and then maybe spread around enough. So, because, like, you know, you could just DMCA it or whatever, you get rid of it, right? I'd rather focus on that. So it's only by virtue of not caring about money or wanting any kind of compensation that I was able to even pursue it. And if it ever did get popular, that's exactly what they would do, is try to cut my knees out, or cut me off of the knees, right? Financially.